Welcome back. Now, there's an organisation called The Key. It was initially apparently some sort of government-backed initiative, but it now provides teaching resources and advice, guidance to more than 100,000 school leaders. In its anti-racism curriculum review, it states that teachers should teach colonialism as invading and exploiting other countries and present the British Empire as you would other global powers that committed atrocities, e.g. Nazi Germany. I'll leave that hanging in the air. Let's go straight over to historian Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Hello, Rafe. Another day, another lot of nonsense. You know, this is an influential organisation whose advice is taken seriously by 100,000 important people in Britain's schools, telling them to teach secondary school kids that the British Empire was like Nazi Germany. I mean, there isn't an equivalence, I would suggest, between the two. The British Empire may have had its faults, but it didn't exterminate 6 million innocent Jews. This is a pernicious thing to tell teachers to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pernicious, it's scurrilous, and it's wholly ignorant, because between the fall of France in June 1940 and Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, the British Empire was all that stood between Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan and their total domination of Europe and Africa and Asia. And the British Empire almost bankrupted itself in its defense of liberty, particularly during that year. And had it actually yielded in 1940 or 41, had Churchill surrendered or sued for peace, the peoples of Eastern Europe, Jews and Slavs alike, but also the peoples of Africa and Asia, would have faced an horrific fate, ranging from, as you said, extermination, but also slavery and subjugation. So to compare the British Empire with Nazi Germany is disgraceful, and it dishonors the sacrifices of all of those soldiers who were drawn from all areas of the British Empire, including, of course, the Indian Empire, which was the largest volunteer force in history. And many Africans and Asians supported the British Empire during the Second World War because they knew the fate that awaited them if Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan in Asia and India succeeded. And it was just for that same reason that during the Boer War, between 1899 and 1902, in South Africa, black South Africans supported the British Empire in its battle against the Boer republics because of the Boers' racist policies of white supremacy. You can see how ludicrous this comparison with Nazi Germany is from the fact that one of the most notable features of the British Empire was the equal status of all subjects of the crown. It didn't matter whether you were black, brown, or white, whether you were in Vancouver or in Nairobi or Manchester or Bombay, you were all equally British subjects and you had the same rights and the same privileges. And that would have been unimaginable in Nazi Germany.
And the British Empire worked hard to stamp out the scourge of slavery all over the world. You have a generation, I think, of teachers who just see the word colony or colonial and think evil. Now, colonialism, you can take a view on it, but it's no good just saying all colonialists are like Nazi Germany, all colonialists are like Adolf Hitler. As you say, this is not only a pernicious and wrong thing to teach kids, it's ignorant, it's unhistorical, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, no one is saying that the British Empire was perfect. Far from it. There are very dark sides to British imperial history. But all empires have shameful episodes. But what was exceptional is how few bad episodes Britain and the British Empire had compared with other European, but more particularly also compared with non-European empires. You mentioned slavery there. That's universal. But the British Empire was, of course, the first global empire to the first empire to abolish slavery. But what was remarkable, it spent the second half of its existence atoning for the sins of slavery. What was unique to the British Empire was the Anglican evangelical Christian movement, which had no equivalent elsewhere before that. And they essentially expended vast resources in forcing an end to the slave trade, not only in the Atlantic, but actually forcing Africans to stop enslaving other Africans. The people who were most resistant to the abolishing of the slave trade were actually people in Africa. And Britain spent a sum equivalent to its entire modern defense budget, 2% of GDP, on the West Africa Squadron to enforce that. And I don't think there was ever an example in history of before that of a power actually making itself poorer just to pursue a moral objective.
Yes, and you know, our alleged evilness was so unpopular, was so hated that something like 50 countries chose to stay in the British Commonwealth voluntarily. Okay, you're right, Rafe. You know, of course there are problems with colonialism, with imperialism. It's a feature of history. But we can't have been that bad if more than 50 countries decided to stick around under our auspices, if you take my point, voluntarily.
That's exactly right. If, you know, when the Soviet Empire collapsed, the peoples of Poland and Hungary, Romania and Bulgaria couldn't wait to flee into the arms of NATO and try to get into the EU. When the British Empire collapsed, those colonies voluntarily chose to get into this free association, still under the headship of the British monarch. That's not something you would expect if it was like Nazi Germany. And what happened with people like, you know, Nehru, the first leader of India, or Jinnah in Pakistan, is they respected the legacy that the British Empire left. They didn't want to overthrow that legacy. They wanted simply to be in charge, because they understood wherever you go in the world, even today, those countries that were under British control are the most stable, most democratic, and usually the richest in those regions of the world. The British Empire also advanced women's rights around the world. You know, it ended the burning of Hindu widows on the funeral pyres of their husbands. Suti enabled Hindu women to remarry, stopped the infanticide of young girls, stopped headhunting in New Zealand, stopped, you know, FGM in East Africa. It's thanks to the legacy of the British Empire that we've seen so many women in Africa and Asia rising up through politics and becoming educated in the legal system. That would have been unimaginable had Britain not had a presence in those places. So look, colonialism obviously has a dark side, but capitalism and colonialism together have done more to lift the world out of poverty than anything else. You just have to look at the population of India, which went from 170 million to 450 million under the British Raj because of Britain's medical and health improvements, food storage techniques, ending famines. There's a good amount of stuff to celebrate.
Totally, Rafe. And to compare us to the Nazis is absolutely disgraceful. Good to talk to you as always, Rafe. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, historian there.